I'd like to call to order the November 15th, 2021 meeting of the Oakdale Environmental Management Commission. First item is our roll call. Commissioner Girding.
Here.
Commissioner Fink.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
And Commissioner Cantola is not present this evening. Before we start with the formal meeting, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item on our agenda this evening is approval of meeting minutes from our October meeting. And commissioners have had a time, this was sent out, and in your review, do you have any changes, omissions, or omissions from the meeting? No?
Nope.
All right, well then I would look for a motion to approve the meeting minutes as written for our October 18th, 2021 meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving our October 18th, 2021 Environmental Management Commission meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting minutes are passed, are approved. All right, we've got a lot on our agenda this evening, and that we have our 2022 work plan to review. And our staff liaison, Shannon Reidlinger, has put this together nicely for us. So I think I'll turn it over to Shannon at this point to present the work plan. I would just say that the draft plan that will be presented here this evening is in coordination with our 2040 comprehensive plan for the city, as well as our work on the Green Step Cities program by the state of Minnesota. So Shannon, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. All right, so there's not going to be a whole lot of surprises on this coming year's work plan. A lot of it looks relatively similar to what we were accomplishing in 2021, but there are a few updates to the plan. So mostly in the EV section that's right at the very top of the table itself. I've taken the priorities that the EMC has voted to support from the EV Ready Community Study and laid them out in the work plan so that we have a little bit more clarity on what it is that we're trying to do related to EV readiness in 2022. So those priorities, again, no surprise to the commission, it's drafting and then hopefully passing some EV ready zoning and subdivision ordinance amendments. We've already gone to the Planning Commission to talk a little bit about what that might look like. So there's movement already on that front. It also includes the potential of conducting a fleet analysis with Xcel Energy. That conversation is in the works as well. You'll see here towards the end of this section of the table, we also have some bullet points around providing generalized education to citizens about electric vehicles, and also the possibility of having some sort of a streamlined online platform for permitting. I know that we talked about EV ready standards, so that at the time of construction, there's the potential to be adding connectivity or to install actual charging stations if like apartment buildings or new businesses want to do that. And so in order to have that happen, we have to have a more streamlined process for permitting. That's another one of the priority goals that we're hoping to hit on in 2022. So that's, I think, the place where you'll see the most difference from previous work plans is just in that clarity. The rest of it should look relatively similar. So we're doing a lot of stuff in 2022 that sticks with the general goals that the commission has related to waste reduction, water conservation, that sort of a thing. You'll note here that there is a section about solar that's been on the plan before, but I tried to maybe take it a little bit higher level to say that we're going to look at best practices around solar accessibility and see what of those make the most sense to implement in the community in 2022. There is a national standard through SolSmart that helps us think through some different best practices that could be implemented in Oakdale, but I think that in 2022 it's prime time for us to just research what those could potentially look like and see which ones are implementable, at least to bring to the council for consideration. The last thing I will mention on this plan is that it does still include the bike and pedestrian plan update. As far as I'm aware, even though that was put on hold temporarily while we find the new community development director, that should be something that is reignited again in 2022. So I left it on there in the work plan because I was told that that's probably going to happen in the next year. I'm hoping from the commission for any feedback if there's anything that's obviously missing, if there's anything that you would like more clarity on, or something that we can be a little bit more descriptive with.
Well, thank you, Shannon. I really appreciate the clarity and specificity of the section on the EV that we've studied, talked about in the past, and I think that's really good that we have those specifics there. Also, just a couple of thoughts. It doesn't spell out here specifically. I'm happy that you had the added increased access to solar. And I was thinking about this this last week, is community solar gardens, because there still are some out there available to Washington County residents. So, Novel Energy has a garden that's just gonna, I think it's gonna start up early December. I think the target is December 1st. And I think that one's almost fully subscribed now, but things like that that we could, you know, point out to businesses and residents that they can, you know, sign up for that. And actually they have where they guarantee that you will, you know, it's a guaranteed, you'll make money on it. It's not a lot, but it's, you know, maybe 10% on your electricity bill. So I think those opportunities we can point out, especially to residents who are apartment owners or cannot finance a full rooftop solar. So that's great. I think we can, as we get into that particular action, we can include the community solar. And then I noticed in here that you also had, with the bike and ped plan, that it was, you know, also alternatives to car travel, and had rental cars. And I know that some communities, generally in the city, have our cars, and that would be nice to have that available maybe at some point. I don't know how you get a rental station in your city, but hopefully if we have some high-density areas that might, you know, like around Hy-Vee or something where that might be possible. So that would be another thing to explore. Yeah, it sounds like if we can get the resources and community development, you know, starting with the director and then build out the rest of the department, that's going to happen, the bike and pedestrian plan. And I really think that's important to have that well thought out in place prior to the Helmo station going in.
Definitely.
Oh, other comments on the work plan for next year?
Just piggybacking on Chair Miller's question about the solar, can you share a little bit more about SolSmart?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's an actual organization. I'm not
Okay.
totally sure. I think it's a federally funded program, or at least it was at one point in time. The whole point of SolSmart is that they provide a designation option for municipalities. So you can be anywhere from designated bronze all the way up to gold. In order to receive that designation, you have to do a certain number of things as a community in order to increase access to solar. Kind of like with electric vehicles, a lot of it has to do with going through, from an administrative standpoint, streamlining the permitting process for solar, making sure that your zoning and subdivision ordinances reflect accessibility for solar, that sort of a thing. That helps you achieve that bronze status. And there are some other things in there as far as community education and just in general marketing for solar in your community. So it's a way just to make sure that you are thinking critically as a municipality about access to solar for residents and businesses.
Thank you. So is it a voluntary program for municipalities, or is there
It is.
Is there an annual fee for anything?
As far as I'm aware, it's voluntary. I do think that there are some services that are offered as part of this grant, but again, I'd have to go through and just make sure that I'm crystal clear on that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I would interject too that, as I remember, we did have a SolSmart grant at one point, maybe 7-8 years ago, and that it's part of the National Renewable Energy Labs in Colorado, of their programs.
And it may have changed a little bit since then, so it's just worth doing that research to figure out what it looks like again. And maybe it's just a matter of saying, what are those best practices that get you to the bronze level designation? Even if we don't decide to become a designated SolSmart community, at the very least, that could help guide the conversation about what we would like to achieve with solar in Oakdale.
Well, I have a question about the new infrastructure bill. Is there someone in the city who investigates upcoming grants that the federal government might provide for, especially the EV part of it?
That's a good question, and I don't know. My gut reaction says maybe that's me, but I'm not totally sure at this point. But that's a good point, because I also have been keeping an eye on the infrastructure bill and curious to know how that money is going to trickle down.
And then one other thing regarding the EV Ready, the community study. I love seeing the permitting requirements, as we talk about reducing barriers to applying and what that process is to gather all that data. Can you just, is there any color commentary that led us to add this point, such as what had we been fielding from businesses in terms of not complaints, but like, where were the opportunities for improvement that led to this specific idea of creating an online process? Like, what does it look like, and what do we hope to?
Yeah, I don't know that we've received any specific complaints from businesses up until this point, especially because outside of Hy-Vee, I'm not sure if anyone has asked to install charging capacity or stations. There may have been, but it just hasn't reached me yet. I will say that as a city, I think that it's appropriate that we consider overall an online permitting process. We do not have one in place at the moment, and that just is an area where we can grow and utilize technology to be a little bit more efficient. So overall, I think there is a conversation around just making sure that permitting in general is online, and I think that it's appropriate as we're having that conversation to say, well then, we'd like to make sure that electric vehicles are part of that conversation too.
Perfect.
I also, in order to do the EV Ready Community Study, just looked at a lot of best practice documents from the Great Plains Institute, for example, and making sure that the permitting process is very streamlined and efficient is just one of their recommended steps to become an EV Ready community.
Great.
Something, so promotes water conservation, and this is more just a conversation with Chair Miller. Besides adopt a drain, we used to dredge one of the lakes, didn't we? In order, and this was, I think, right before I started with the commission. They would dredge, I want to say it was Tanner, but I don't know if that's ringing any bells.
I don't remember Tanner's Lake. However, in connection with the Adopt a Drain program, those are stormwater drains, and the city has over 200 stormwater
Yeah.
ponds that are city-owned, created by the city to, serve as ponds to prevent water from the storm sewer going directly into a wetland. And so the city has a calendar set up, a schedule for dredging those ponds, because they do
Okay.
build up with silt and
Yeah.
rotted leaves and
Leaves
things that get washed into the storm sewer. Especially if there's road construction in the area, there'll be more silting, and they have to dredge them, or, they also have other equipment that can suck the silt out of a pond to give it, make sure it maintains its capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had thought that several years back that you were part of like a cleanup program.
That
That
was
ri-
at
okay.
Tanner's Lake.
I'm
That
like,
was
am
at
I
Tan-
reading,
yeah.
ringing any bells? Because I thought that used to be part of our plan as a commission, and then they didn't need it as much because it was clean.
Yeah, there were two things that happened. We did it a few years in a row. And early on, we discovered on the north end of the lake, people were dumping, and had been dumping for many years. Just all sorts of things, tires and old washing machines and various things that should not be dumped near a lake or a wetland area from a lake. And that all got cleaned out.
Okay.
And meanwhile, we had other people going around the lake shore on both sides all the sides of the lake that are public, and doing cleanup in the spring when, there's fish houses out on the lake in the winter, and sometimes there's debris from that as well. We even had paddle boarders out there doing, on the lake, pulling things out. And after a few years, the lake quality was getting pretty good, and we felt we had diminishing returns. I think the last year we did it, we didn't have as much waste that we were collecting, so we decided to stop it. But that would be something to consider again,
Yeah.
to take a look at that, to do that in the spring and the April kind of time frame after, the ice is off the lake, and that's generally when there's the most debris from the winter.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's not necessarily something that goes in the plan. I had just remembered you always used to talk about it and how it was like something that like was very beneficial to do, probably because of all the illegal dumping, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, maybe that's outside this then.
It might be relevant for the editorial calendar
Yeah.
that we talk about
Yep.
next.
Yeah, just something more social versus official.
Yep.
Yeah, I was, regarding though the water conservation part of it too, is, last summer, especially in early summer, we had pretty bad drought conditions.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people were watering more because of the drought, watering their lawns. And I think if we have another summer like that, it may be good to publish some guidance on water conservation and lawn watering and how much water does a lawn actually need in a week. And also that letting your lawn, just not watering it,
Yeah.
and letting it go dormant. It doesn't die, it just goes dormant. Unfortunately, the weeds take over, but, but we could have some guidance around that so that people would have an opportunity to conserve water in a drought condition especially. And I think there are things like that with changing weather patterns that, we can help with adaptation as well as prevention.
Yeah. This looks great though, Shannon. Really good job.
Yeah, and I think we can further fill out some of these as we later, on the next item is our communications plan. And so we can figure out, some of these actions will be communications to
Agreed.
businesses and
Yeah.
residents on these items, so.
Yeah, certainly. I'm going to take some of the comments that you guys have made and where appropriate, update the work plan, but I think quite a few of the comments are also relevant for the editorial calendar as well. The work plan, as it says here, it's still a draft, so the plan is to present it to council sometime in the first quarter. There might be some conversation after that on the work plan itself, but keeping it high level, I think, is really important for the council to be able to digest just in general what the commission's priorities are. So yeah, like I said, I will take the feedback, do some of that here in the work plan and some of it in the editorial calendar.
Yeah. No, that's right, Shannon. I appreciate that. I think this is at the right level to present to the mayor and the city council.
Yep.
Do we need to officially adopt this as our plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the commission can vote to support it, more or less, and
Okay.
having that vote on the record is always a good thing.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other comments before we move on? All right, let's go to the work plan next, the communication strategy next. And so Shannon has put together a review of our 2022 environmental communications plan, and including a draft of the editorial calendar for 2022. And again, I think I'll turn it over to you, Shannon.
Yeah, sure. Before we get there, did you want to vote formally to support the?
I think we should, in
2022
order
work
to
plan?
have that on record and
Yeah.
to be congruent with each other.
Yeah, I would recommend that, just so we can tell council that we did that.
Yeah, that's great, thank you. All right, I would look for a motion that the Environmental Management Commission has reviewed and approves the draft 2022 EMC Work Plan.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the draft 2022 Environmental Management Commission Work Plan, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The work plan, the draft is approved.
Perfect. Okay, moving on, editorial calendar. So very similar to the work plan, a lot of this is going to not be a surprise. It looks quite similar to last year's editorial calendar. What I really wanted to do with presenting the 2022 draft editorial calendar to you guys today is just to open the floor to say, if this if the content looks similar, if the themes look similar, how do we take this particular calendar a step forward and make sure that the EMC is really getting the chance to engage with the materials here, or just so that you feel like it is relevant to your work as a commission? It's going to be an evolving conversation. I think that there's a lot of education that I need to do around the role specifically of commissions when it comes to getting out there in the community. But at the very least, if we have the conversation, then that's a place to start. So just to give you a very, very high-level overview of this, again, a lot of the themes and the content itself stayed the same year over year. I tweaked a couple of months just to give a little bit more clarity on what we were actually focusing on with regards to how it aligns with the work plan. So June, for example, was tweaked from last year a little bit more. But again, overall, kind of still the same when it comes to the topics. I did also reuse a little bit of the language around just the overview of the policy and the objective of the editorial calendar that was used when presenting the 2021 editorial calendar. So that looks relatively similar. But I tried to I thought about adding a column in the table itself with ways for the EMC to engage with the material. And then I thought, no, let's just go ahead and add a bucket at the very end of the memo that talks to potential ideas for commissioner engagement. And that's where I'd really love your feedback, along with just making sure that we're okay with the themes month over month and the content itself. If you all, I know that we had a few commissioners join us, for example, at the farmers market to promote the organics program through Washington County in July. That was a really easy way for us to align what we were talking about with the editorial calendar to what we were covering, what the commission was doing as far as engaging with that content. So if there's any other ways that you feel like you want to be able to kind of amp up what we're doing with the editorial calendar, then I am all ears. I'd love to hear those suggestions.
Piggybacking on that, I agree, Shannon, that there was several of us had a lot of fun this year, furthering the mission of this commission. I think one of the things that really strikes me is how do we blend everything that's on paper, and how do we make it really easy for people to know that from what we're doing, even in this room right now, rolls up into a comprehensive 2040 development plan. So I actually think having another column, not that I'm all for columns and grids and matrices, but I do think having another column of what engagement can look like month over month, because it might differ in the colder months versus the warmer months. So having a standing thing at the bottom of this is fantastic in terms of volunteering for in-person events, but there may not be any in November and December. So just thinking out loud, workshopping this thing, I think it might be helpful to know specifically how we can further each of these, topics as related to our work plan, and then as related to how they fit into or lensed with the 2040 comp plan. So however we want to, and this is a working, moving target, right?
Yep.
So however we want to create that content on this, I think it'd be helpful to have this as like the guiding document. So not only what it is that we're about, but what we're doing and how we are running this and operationalizing this on the ground every single month. So those are my thoughts.
Agree.
I love it. Oh, sorry.
No,
I love having the entire I love having the entire year as a snapshot. I think that's super helpful. And yeah, I just think, to your point, keeping it high level, it'd just be great to see what each of these months feed up into in terms of the broader systems change we're trying to, we're trying to see through here.
And then not only that, but also the connectivity. Part of our plan in and of itself is education. And so being in front of people, I mean, that's the simplest form, right? It's that kind of organic, face-to-face, word of mouth. So we did that this summer with the farmers market. In the winter, there's the indoor thing. Then in April, typically, there's like the plant a tree, clean up the buckthorn stuff. So like we can have volunteerism through the commission so that people know there is a commission. Because I don't even necessarily know how many residents, it's just not part of their day-to-day. Why would they know to an extent? But reminding them is never a bad thing. And then being able to focus on topics. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was wondering if there are some virtual workshops or events we could create as well. Like specifically, I was thinking of if we could do something with the Clean Energy Resource Team or Xcel Energy, their home energy audit people,
yeah.
to have a workshop and to get that out there and put that, have a Zoom meeting and let them go through the main type of energy efficiency places in a home where you can save money and what are the, I know they have a ranking of what are the big hitters in a home that where you really can have the biggest opportunity for conservation, like and I guess return on your investment. Like I know replacing your windows is really low unless you really have bad windows, but there are other things you can do to, that have a 1-year return on investing in that. So that was one thought I had, especially, with the projection of home energy heating costs going up this winter.
And even, so like we did composting this summer, maybe this winter we could do recycling and even take up a collection for CFL pigtail bulbs. I don't mind bringing those over myself if we can have one place where we can collect them. Like very simple outreach programs or host Excel. See if they'll have a representative that would come out on a Saturday. I would, we can put up to the commission if anyone's available to host with them and have a booth. Just have the ability to even let people know it exists. Because that's a really cool program.
Yeah.
But recycling would be easy. I mean, just meeting people where they're at. I think for the channels, the Oakdale update can be a little bit difficult since it's biannual.
It's 3 times a year.
Quarterly,
three?
or
Okay.
trying,
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Spring, summer, winter.
Okay. And then what was our success rate with posting on the socials?
It varies.
Okay.
So I think that we had a little bit more success when we had a communications specialist. We do not currently have one.
Oh,
So it's kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge of staff doing it at this point in time.
okay.
I think that's another reason why I'm happy that the commission is having this conversation about the editorial calendar, because we do have an opportunity now when somebody new steps in to say, this has already been created. We're trying to be very intentional about seeing how the commission's work rolls up into the greater comprehensive plan and the overall system itself. So, there's a way for us to speak into whether or not social media is the best outlet for some of this. And I think that for some of it is. It's just that depending on the audience, Facebook or Instagram might not be the
Yeah.
best approach. But that's going to take a little bit of data mining too.
Yeah. Figure out, the demographics and how people get their data within,
Yeah, I don't know. One of the questions that I would want to ask would be whether or not the city has any sort of back end, like subscriptions to systems that do capture all that information. I mean, I know that Facebook gives you
metrics.
some high level data, but I don't know if it's quite enough. So if we don't have that, then there might be an argument to see whether or not that's a possibility to get that. But until then, we might be working with some pretty bare bones data.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people read Nextdoor, and I don't know how many Oakdale residents read it because they're kind of lumped together with Lake
Yeah.
Elmo and in some cases a broader context. But it seems like there's a lot of enthusiasm on Nextdoor. And it would be simple to put any kind of notice there. You could maybe have a little logo that went with all of the notices, but to mark it as coming from the EMC or coming from the city or something, but
Sure.
I think people do pay attention to that.
And yeah, it's a great point, and then even more granular than Oakdale's Facebook page, there's the Facebook groups within it. So I think there's 2 or 3 groups, I think, that
I
are
don't know.
central to Oakdale. There's like an Oakdale community Facebook page, there's one with like an events, and I think there's obviously one for classifieds and things for sale, but I know that there's like subgroups, right, within our bigger social media accounts that we can always mine. It's much like Nextdoor, because then you're really at an audience that are ready to
Yeah.
watch their phones and watch their notifications, so. And I think some data might exist too within the partner organizations. I know that that's probably a big goal or a strategy within your next communications person, but really, as we look to build awareness and capacity within the EMC group, like how great would it be to just cultivate and nurture the partner organizations that are already in our corner with some very simple outreach, if it's phone calls or emails to say thank you and how are you thinking about this and how are we sharing information, and kind of run it like a partnership MOU without having the formality, but it takes staff and capacity and time, which
Sure.
I totally understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just one of you.
Right now.
Question about April.
Yeah.
Have we, as a commission, do we have a park that we adopt? Or a wetland?
Just a drain.
Not just a drain.
It's true, it's a few
It's what the drains
It's
do.
It's a few drains. I think the adopt a park or like the clean the park thing, it's like you can come pick up, well, it's at the Discovery Center. You can get bags and like blue gloves or whatever, and you just pick a park. So we
But
could pick a
Parks
park.
and Rec actually does that.
No, yeah,
Parks and Rec Commission
Yeah.
has a pretty established program for Adopt a Park every year.
Great.
yeah.
So how do we plug into that?
Good question.
From a cross-commission support
They could-
lens, right?
We could join, I've done it. I just never said, hi, I'm from the Environmental Commission. But, we could partner with them. They're always looking for more volunteers. Parks and Rec Commission is.
Mhm.
Yes, and many years ago, I did, as we started promoting the Adopt a Wetland program, I adopted the wetland behind my house and got some neighbors involved in that as well. And so, I mean, that's something if we live near a wetland that we could, right around our neighborhood, or, adopt that wetland area and do it as a group, it's a lot better. I've kind of ended up doing most of it these days, but there are people there to help when I need it, so, yeah. And with the bicycling and transportation too, another thought is in order to help people to make awareness of bike trails in Oakdale and also bicycle safety and some education about how to commute and the rules of the road kind of. The organization Bike Minnesota does a really good job, and they have a workshop that they do for people on bicycle safety and education, and it's kind of what are the rules of the road to stay safe and that type of thing. And even for experienced bicycle riders, it's good to have that reminder to, sometimes you neglect to follow all of the safety rules. And I think if people feel safe and they know there are routes to get to work and that they're more likely to commute by bike to work. I know when I worked for 3M, we had workshops with Bike Minnesota and increased the number of commuters greatly after we did that. So I guess what I'm hearing in general here is that as we look at our editorial calendar throughout the year, that we look for opportunities where commissioners can engage with the community or businesses and be part of a workshop or an event or community event. And we could also create our own events if we think that would help, like the Tanner's Lake cleanup or something like that. If we feel there's a need for an event, we could, have some sweat equity to put in and pull that off, and possibly partner with others in the community as well.
Is any other commission doing something like this?
I don't know.
Okay.
That would be a really good question to ask, especially because I genuinely feel like with this, we have the possibility of setting precedent.
Yeah.
And I think that was originally the goal when Alyssa and I had created the editorial calendar last year. I know that when we did, it was just the EMC who was thinking about it, and then some other departments started to come on board. I just don't know how far that went. So even though I think that there's still some growing pains to figure out, like, how do we actually use this as a tool and leverage it for the commission, the fact that we're still trying, I think, is huge, because it does lay that groundwork.
So any further comments on the editorial calendar?
Well, I'm just wondering if we should think about it and then settle on 1 month where we actually, as a commission, want to create an event. Because we could talk about it every month, but if we don't zero in on something, we probably aren't going to do it. So if we feel strongly about something like you do about bicycling, or other people do about recycling, we could, as a commission, create an event and just see how it goes. 1. I'm not saying we do one every month, but zero in on something that we really want to specialize in just for that one time and see how it goes.
When does the indoor market start, or is it already started?
It started last Saturday.
Last Saturday, was it? Okay.
It's about twice a month,
Yeah, every other week.
and I think they are quite welcoming if you want to have a table or if you want to promote something.
I think one of the things that I will say in response to that is I would like to have a conversation with our city administrator just to get much more crystal clear on what the role of the commission actually is. I think
That would
it's
be
huge
good.
that you guys want to be able to volunteer and to get yourselves out there in front of the community. My question would be just, is this within,
Right.
or are we sticking within scope to say
Yeah,
something like,
yeah.
we want to choose 1 month and really create an event itself? So that will be a to-do that I will take, is just to go back to the city administrator and say, okay, help me understand crystal clear what the role of the commission is.
And then you can tell us.
Exactly. There you go.
I do think, and I don't want to speak on your behalf, but when we went to it was in a Minneapolis church.
It was the first, like, cross-city commission.
Do you remember they had all those
Environmental
breakout
commission
sessions?
gathering.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason I mention it is because it does speak to, I think, how ambiguous the commission's role is. I mean, we had individuals in our breakout sessions that were passing legislature and others who were just learning what recycling was. So it was so broad reaching. That the good news is I do think there's room for us to do almost as much as we would want, but it is ambiguous. So whether it's our own event or piggybacking off of another event, just to dip our toe in that proverbial pond. But I'm still to this day blown away by how broad the scope of involvement commissioners were, depending on kind of just what your commission was about. But they made an impact, that is for sure.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Shannon, for putting this together. And I think it was really a good discussion, and we have a group of commissioners that wants to get engaged here and really do some things out there in the community. So, all right. The next item on our agenda this evening is our editorial review calendar for the remainder of this year. And we have, October that has ended now was renewable energy focused, and also energy efficiency and promoting the energy efficiency, the home energy squads, clean energy project builder, and the Washington County Be a Battery Hero campaign. And this month is recycling. And actually today is America Recycles Day. And so very important that we continue to recycle, and that is one of our goals, is to improve our recycling rates. I think we're now getting better data on recycling and waste, that Washington County is has a tracking system for that, and so we're getting better data on recycling rates, and we want to improve those. And then, of course, there are the food scraps drop-off program. And we have a couple of EMC members here that are part of that program, and we're part of a video put together for that. So, yeah, and then we have for December coming up, low waste holidays, and again, energy efficiency. Now we have the availability of LED Christmas lights, which is wonderful and saves a lot of energy in the holiday season. Also recycling, and that there tends to be more waste generation, and a lot of that is recyclable, as well as the Christmas trees, tree recycling itself. So some opportunities coming up.
Does Oakdale recycle Christmas lights?
I don't know.
You
They
have
did
to
at one
bring
time, but.
them- Yeah, I think you have to bring them to the environmental center.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not a big deal.
No, but I think one year I do remember they were collecting them here
Here,
at
yeah,
City Hall to take them out there. But
I mean,
know-
that would be very popular if you had a little booth at the farmer's market.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Explaining how
such
to
an easy thing, right?
do that.
Well, and that's something too, and I didn't think of it for next year, I was thinking of it for this year. Christmas lights should almost be bumped up. Cause like by December, they're either up or trashed, right? So we should almost bump that up to November and then focus December on tree recycling and electronic recycling. Cause everyone gets new,
Good.
right?
Point.
And even for like be a battery hero for October, like how to throw away a battery. That's might sound ridiculous, but I didn't know you were supposed to tape the ends. Maybe other people don't know that. So, and maybe you don't tape the ends. Maybe you're making more waste, but someone had told me that because they can leak, and so if you tape the ends, it's supposed to be better. But that's hearsay. Maybe that's ridiculous. I don't know. So like, how do you do that? But yeah, that might be something for 2022 where we finagle that a tit to get above, like, ahead of the curve.
Ahead.
Yeah.
Any other comments about the editorial review calendar? The editorial calendar? Yeah, and I realize that at this point, without a communications person, there's only so much that we can be getting out there, right? Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We got a post for America Recycles Day. We did it, so
Great,
that's good.
yeah. All right. Any other comments before we move on? No? Okay. Thank you, Shannon. Now we are moving to the part of the meeting where commissioners can provide updates on things that they have been working on or things that they've attended or ideas on things that we could implement or should be aware of. So I'll open it up to the commission.
Well, I want to mention that this last month, Oakdale was approved to join the network of age-friendly communities. And so we're one of a dozen communities in Minnesota that have been designated as beginning the age-friendly journey. It's a 5-year project, and there's a task force that's working on it. But one of the things that relates to here is that we'll concentrate our efforts after a community survey, and probably it's likely to include transportation and outdoor spaces. So I can keep you informed as to what is going on with that, but it is a new thing for Oakdale to be designated as an age-friendly community. And there may be some grant funds.
I don't have any information to date on the Grow Solar Twin Cities program. Their sign-up ended at the end of October, and so the program formally has concluded, and I will see if I can get the results of the program, where they ended up, if they made the maximum deduction and cost, if they got enough solar, PV solar systems installed to do that. And I imagine have still been working on that before they close down and need to start up again in the spring. But the weather's been pretty friendly to them up until this last weekend.
Yeah.
So I made a note here to get some results on that. Anything else any of the commissioners would like to bring forward at this time?
One random item. Are you all on the listserv, the cross-commission, cross-city listserv? That, forget who puts it out. It stemmed from the conference we went to
Oh.
at the church.
Is it where you get like the little,
The little snippets or the
yeah,
questions or whatever.
Yep,
I don't know
yeah.
if it's called a listserv or whatever, but a couple weeks ago, there was one about single-use plastics, if anybody saw that, but the city of White Bear is starting to investigate and baseline what it could look like. So we have, I haven't lost sight of that, Chair, so it's still brewing in the back of my head. So there's another city that's close that wants more information on how other cities have navigated that
it's awesome.
multifaceted process.
Yeah.
So I don't have an update, but that is my update. For White Bear is also interested. And then just a plug for the Environmental Center, if anybody has been there recently, they have completely redone their organics drop-off lines. They've created a whole new flow for residents and a whole new like parking pad and all new drainage and new curb cut. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. So makes it really easy, and the line is a lot less. Well, the line is a lot less because you're not waiting halfway to make a U-turn into the parking lot. They shoot you off into a different direction. So anyway, it was easy before. Now it's super easy. So plug in the center.
Yeah, and I think to piggyback on what you said, I think that we've talked about this in the past, but if residents are going to make a trip to the Environmental Center, to ask your neighbors if they have anything that you could take to the center for them, old paint cans or electronics, or whatever they may have around that could use a new home at the Environmental Center and save a trip. And I know I have a bunch of stuff sitting in my garage ready to
Same.
go. And I think I've got enough to make a trip, but probably have room in the car to take others as well. And I know I've always appreciated when someone has reached out to me and said they were going there and if I had anything, so. Help increase your recycling, because sometimes I know people get tempted to just throw it in the trash because they don't want to drive out there, and it's good to carpool out there as well. All right. So if there are no other items, I would look for a motion. Well, before that, I would just remind people that our next meeting is January 10th, 2022. Because of holiday on the third Monday, we are meeting a week earlier on the 10th, so the second Monday of January. And I think the way the holidays fall, we do the same in February, so we'll meet on the second Monday then as well. So if there are no other comments, I would look for a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor of adjourning the November 15th, 2021 meeting of the Environmental Management Commission, say aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting adjourned.